Okay. Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
You are the miserable mom.
Yes, I am.
Well, you certainly don't look miserable, and you don't seem miserable. I know it's kind of a humorous book. Like I said before we got on, I've been seeing your posts on social media, and they're very funny, and I appreciate what you're doing. So the book is, I'm guessing this book was inspired by your own children going off to college, was it?
Absolutely. Yes. It was inspired when my oldest daughter went off to college. I was filled with tons of emotion. And I was noticing that I was acting in ways that I wouldn't under less emotional circumstances. And when I looked around me, I noticed that my friends were doing the same thing. And I just thought that there was so much emotion that it made everybody kind of act out a little bit. And I think there's some humor in that. And because we're human, we're real. So I saw the humor in it and thought that it would be a fun thing to share.
Okay, well, we'll get back to that in a second. It's interesting how certain parents react because when I left at 18, I think my parents were glad.
Hmm.
They didn't cry at the door, and they said, "Okay, have a good time," and they went off traveling and did whatever they were going to do. So it was kind of a different experience. I didn't feel that they were miserable because I was leaving. Um, but I wanted to ask you, give me a couple of examples of what you meant by what you said about acting funny. What sort of things did you do when your daughter left?
So I I appreciate what you just said about a lot of parents being, myself included. There were things about, the kids leaving that were exciting and great, and I got more time with my husband and all of that kind of stuff. But there was something about letting go. There was something about the period of time when I was preparing her to go to school, to dropping her off, to coming home, that just made me feel everything and kind of question a lot about what it was going to mean for all of us. Good, bad, indifferent. I just knew it was going to be different, and I wanted to, I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to react to that. To answer your question, some of the do's and don'ts that I did, the things that I did were here. I'll show you. Can you see this? This is
Yeah.
one. It's the first one is to be excited that your kid can't wait to go to college. And the don't is don't demand to know what's so great about leaving you. So I had a lot of friends that were super excited that their kids were going off to college and were excited for them. But we're also kind of like, what the heck? I've given you 18 years of everything and now you can't wait to take off. So that kind of stuff.
Now, I don't have children, so I don't have a firsthand experience with this. But just from what I think my reaction would be had I had children, I mean, I couldn't put the blame on them for wanting to get out. That's sort of a normal progression, isn't it? You don't expect your kids to stay home till they're 40.
Absolutely. And that's really what this book is about. So the book is about preparing your kid to go out into the world, and what you want is for them to want to go and be successful and be on their own and be able to do all of those things. But there's a little piece of you, I think, when you're a mom who has been home raising them all this time, who just misses them. And as much as that's exactly what you want, it kind of makes you think, okay, what does that mean for me now? That's exactly what you want for them, but what does that mean for me? And that's really what this book is about. It's my raw and honest story about what I was feeling and thinking during this period of time. And the do's and don'ts are the ways that one would expect to behave during this period of time, and the ways that I and other people actually behave during this period of time, not because we didn't want it to be happening, we did, but because it was just raw emotion. And I think, like anything in life, when you feel deeply, it can make you act out a little bit because we're just human.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm not trying to lessen the emotional parting, because certainly when you have a child that you gave birth to and raised them through diapers and nursery school and right on up to their walking out the door, yeah, I could see that. It'd be rather like, parents cry at their kids' weddings.
Absolutely. And you want them to get married, but that's a big change, right? And it's exciting and new, and you kind of can't believe that that time has come.
Right, exactly. How long has your book been out?
Not very long, just a couple of weeks. It's been out on Amazon, and it's doing very well. And I think that now, leading up to like Mother's Day and graduation, and parents actually bringing their kids off to college, is a good time for people to actually read it, because it's when you're really feeling that stuff the most.
So, when did your daughter leave for college? How long ago was that?
Well, that was a long time ago, actually. It was because she's out of college, and my younger one, who was in high school, just starting high school in the book, is actually in college himself now. It took me time when after we dropped my daughter off at school, I came home, and truly the next day I sat down at my computer and just started writing, and I did so for months. And that was getting out my just emotions and the raw and honest story about what I experienced. And then I had an idea for the do's and don'ts and illustrating them. I had a professor in college who always said, "Show me, don't tell me." And I thought the comics would be a fun way to do that. So that took a long time, as you can imagine. COVID hit, and that was not a great time to release the book. So it's been a long time in the making. I took a break in between and started my social media and my website. So a long time, a few years actually.
Well, the illustrations are great. Do you want to give a plug to your illustrator, to your artist?
Absolutely. I would love to. His name is Brett Nance. And I wrote the book and I created the images and needed help with the characters. So I sought out someone whose work would lend itself to the style that I was looking for. And I found and hired my co-illustrator for the book, who was able to design the characters based on my family and friends. And he's also great with layout and everything technical. And together we worked side by side on the illustrations and had a great time. The social media is just me utilizing that library of characters for the book that I manipulate. But we had a great time.
I just had an idea. You could take it with a grain of salt, but I just had an idea for your part two of this book, if
Okay.
you're going to do one, and that would be, miserable mom becomes a grandma, and all the
You know
do's,
what? I hope so.
yeah, and all the do's and don'ts when you become a grandmother, because I know that when parents, like, they say, "Oh, I'm never going to do that to my kids like my parents did," and it always skips a generation, because honestly I had almost a better relationship with my grandparents than I did with my parents. My parents were a little bit, not to discredit them, they were nice, loving people, but they were a little more standoffish, where my grandparents were really more warm and nurturing, okay? Because I think they could sort of take a step back and say, "Oh, well, it's not really my child." So maybe they figured out the second time around that, "Oh, okay, let's do things a little bit differently," something like that.
Right, right.
But there probably will be anxiety when you have a baby again in the house, yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that idea. And that is why I expanded the brand Miserable Mom to include not just this phase of parenting, but to include all things kind of midlife. So on my website and on my social media, at my Instagram, which is at Miserable Moms, and my website is miserablemoms.com, I have different categories that include things like all things questionable parenting. I could include all things midlife unfiltered, and that's everything from wrinkles to sagging boobs to sitting in traffic and complaining about the person who won't make the turn in front of you, to starvation and torture, and holiday havoc. And it's because I feel like things like having grandchildren and getting older and hitting 50 plus and all of these milestones in life make you act, make you question, make us human. And it is that here, it's those emotions that I really like kind of shining a light on and taking a step back and laughing at, because they're real, but they're also kind of funny and fun. And I think if we can all realize that we're not alone in these things and we can laugh, then it's just a lot more fun.
Well, I agree with you. So the tidbits that you're posting on social media, are those taken from the book, or are they original, just whatever comes to your mind?
Those the social media stuff is original, whatever comes to my mind. So when I started out with the book, writing the book, and then I would have other ideas about just funny things that were happening in my life that I wanted to post, and or at least show other people online. And so I just kind of started putting them up, and I was getting a good response back, and so that kind of kept me going. So it's really just about whatever I notice in a given day or a given time. And I often have friends, and people who I don't know reaching out and sending me a message saying this would be a really funny post. And it usually is, because whatever makes you stop and think about something that makes you look at it a little differently is fun to examine in a comical way.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think a lot of stand-up comedians would agree with you as well, because that's sort of the premise. We do have to wind this down. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do. The website is miserablemoms.com. And the Instagram is at Miserable Moms. And the book, is Miserable Mom, the do's and don'ts of sending your kid to college. And it's available on Amazon.
Great. #1 bestseller on Amazon, yeah?
Yes, it did. It did very, very well in its opening days.
Well, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Well, Sharon, thanks so
Thank you
much
so
again.
much.
Thanks for coming on. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Thanks for having me.